He came home smiling, sunburned from a month in Greece, with his mistress rolling a luxury suitcase across the hardwood floor like a man returning to a kingdom he believed would always belong to him. Then he looked up at the living room wall and froze. The wedding portrait was gone. In its place hung a massive framed photograph of me standing beside another man, both of us smiling beneath the gold evening light of the Arizona desert. And directly underneath it, mounted in a black frame like a trophy, was a legal document bearing only one name under property owner.
Meaning?
Daniel Mercer liked making announcements in public because public spaces gave him control. If people were watching, he became charming, confident, impossible to challenge without looking emotional or unstable. I learned that slowly over 17 years of marriage, the same way women often learn the truth about men. Not all at once, but in tiny humiliations that accumulate quietly inside the body until one day they become impossible to ignore.
The
night he destroyed our marriage began with grilled steaks, fairy lights, and country music drifting across our backyard in Scottsdale, Arizona.
we had
Hosted dozens of gatherings like that over the years. Neighbors stood around with sweating beer bottles. Wives traded stories about college applications and rising grocery prices. Somebody's teenage son cannonballed into the pool, while everyone pretended not to notice the profanity echoing across the water. It should have been an ordinary Saturday night. I was carrying a tray of corn salad from the kitchen when I heard Daniel laughing near the patio bar.
not.
His normal laugh, this one was louder, sharper, performative, the kind he used when he wanted attention. His arm was draped around a woman named Brianna, 28 years old, heavily tanned blonde extensions down to the middle of her back, the kind of woman who looked permanently photographed for Instagram. Even while standing beside a cooler full of Diet Coke, I had met her twice before. Daniel called her a marketing consultant for his construction company. By then, I already knew. Women usually know long before they allow themselves to admit it. Still, there is a difference between suspecting betrayal and hearing your husband casually redefine your marriage in front of 15 people holding paper plates. One of the neighbors joked about Daniel spending so much time with Brianna lately, and Daniel lifted his bourbon glass with a grin. Well, he said, Claire and I are doing things differently these days. This is basically an open marriage now. She just hasn't fully embraced it yet. The conversation died instantly. Somebody coughed. The music from the outdoor speakers suddenly sounded too loud. I remember the exact feeling that moved through my body in that moment. Not heartbreak at first, not even anger. It was something colder, like stepping barefoot into freezing water and realizing too late how deep it goes.
I
Stared at him, waiting for the punchline. It never came. Instead, Daniel pulled Brianna a little closer against his side and took a slow sip of his drink while people deliberately looked everywhere except at me. I should probably explain something about my husband. Daniel had not always been cruel. Selfish, yes, ambitious, certainly, but cruelty came later after success inflated him into someone who confused money with wisdom and attention, with value. 10 years earlier, he had been just another exhausted contractor trying to build a business while I worked full-time in interior design and handled most of the parenting for our daughter Ellie. When the company nearly collapsed during a bad economy, I used the inheritance my mother left me to keep it alive. $70,000. Almost everything she had. Daniel used to call me his rock back then. Funny how quickly men rewrite history once they know. Longer need the woman who helped build it. The guests left early that night. No one wanted to be trapped inside, the tension hanging over our backyard like smoke. I cleaned paper plates in silence, while Daniel sat at the kitchen island, scrolling through his phone, completely relaxed as though he had merely announced a vacation plan instead of detonating 17 years of marriage in front of our friends. Finally, I said, "You humiliated me." He did not even look up. "You're overreacting. You told everyone we have an open marriage. We should have one," he replied casually. "Monogamy isn't realistic forever, Claire. People evolve." I let out a quiet laugh then, because sometimes the absurdity becomes too large for tears. Evolve, I repeated.
Is
That what this is called now? Daniel sighed dramatically the way impatient men do when forced to explain basic truths to foolish women. Look, he said, setting down his phone. At last, I didn't plan for this to happen, but Brianna makes me feel alive again. I'm 46 years old, Claire. I don't want the rest of my life to feel predictable. And what exactly do I get out of this arrangement? That's up to you, he answered with a shrug. You can do whatever you want to. It was such a ridiculous statement that I almost admired the arrogance behind it. Men like Daniel loved the idea of freedom when they believed only they would benefit from it. Upstairs, I heard Ellie's bedroom door close softly. She had heard enough. Daniel walked to the wine fridge and poured himself another drink. I'm leaving for Europe on Tuesday, he said. 3 weeks in Greece, maybe Italy afterward. Brianna's coming with me. I stared at him. You're serious? Yes. You think I'm just supposed to stay here and wait while you parade your mistress across Europe? He turned toward me slowly, irritation hardening his face. Mistress is a dramatic word. And honestly, Claire, this whole victim routine is exhausting. I'm trying to be honest with you instead of sneaking around. There it was. The modern language selfish people used to make. Betrayal sound enlightened. Honesty, growth, freedom, healing, anything. Except accountability. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're still my wife. You still have this house, this life, financial security. I'm not abandoning you. I'm asking you to adapt. Adapt like I was software requiring an update. I looked around the kitchen we remodeled together 15 years earlier.
the
Marble countertops I chose, the pendant lights I installed myself while pregnant with Ellie, the family photographs lining the hallway. Every inch of that home carried pieces of my labor, my sacrifices, my invisible fingerprints. Yet somehow Daniel spoke as though he alone had built our life. That night, after he went upstairs, I remained alone, in the kitchen for almost an hour. The refrigerator hummed softly. The backyard lights reflected against the dark windows. Somewhere down the street, a dog barked into the warm desert night. Then I noticed our wedding portrait hanging above the fireplace. We looked so young in that photograph. Daniel's hand rested proudly against my waist. My face glowed with the kind of trust only young brides possess, the belief that love automatically protects people from becoming strangers. I walked toward the portrait slowly. Then I lifted it off the wall, not because I hated him,
not yet.
but because for the first time in 17 years, I finally understood something devastating. The marriage in that photograph no longer existed. And maybe it hadn't existed for a very long time. Daniel left on a Tuesday morning with 2 designer suitcases, expensive sunglasses, and the relaxed confidence of a man absolutely certain the world would wait for him. Brianna sat in the passenger seat of his black Range Rover, wearing white linen pants and oversized sunglasses, one manicured hand resting possessively on his arm while he backed out of the driveway. Neither of them looked at me standing on the front porch. Only Ellie did. My daughter stood slightly behind me in an old Arizona State sweatshirt, arms crossed tightly over her chest, watching her father drive away with an expression far too old for 16 years old. She's snorts did not wave goodbye. The SUV disappeared around the corner. The silence afterward felt unnatural, like the house itself had stopped breathing. For the first 2 days, I moved through rooms mechanically, unable to focus long enough to finish simple tasks. I loaded the dishwasher and forgot to start it. I reheated coffee 3 times before realizing I never drank it. At night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan while my mind replayed the barbecue over and over again. Daniel's voice, the laughter, the humiliation of standing there while strangers avoided eye contact out of pity. Humiliation is a strangely physical emotion. It settles into your muscles, your stomach, your skin. What hurt most was not even the affair. It was the certainty in Daniel's face when he announced it publicly. The absolute confidence that I would tolerate anything rather than lose the life we had built. And maybe for many years he would have been right. I had spent nearly 2 decades being practical, sensible, supportive. I swallowed frustrations because marriages required compromise. I ignored smaller betrayals because adulthood demanded endurance. Somewhere along the way, Daniel mistook my loyalty for weakness. 3 days after he left, Brianna posted photographs from Mickey's. I saw them because mutual acquaintances began sending them to me awkwardly, as though I somehow deserved. Advanced warning before public humiliation continued online. Daniel stood shirtless beside an infinity pool, holding a champagne glass while Brianna pressed against him in a white bikini, both of them glowing with a smug self-satisfaction of people convinced they were envied instead of embarrassing. The caption read, "Life begins when you stop apologizing for your happiness." I stared at the screen for several seconds. Then I laughed, not because it was funny, but because middle-aged men abandoning their families for younger women always believed they were participating in some profound romantic revolution instead of the oldest cliché in America. Ellie walked into the kitchen while I was still looking at the post. "Are you okay?" she asked quietly. I locked the phone and set it down. "I will be."
She
opened the refrigerator, grabbed orange juice, then hesitated before speaking again. "You know what's weird?" she said. "Dad keeps posting like he won something." The comment startled me because it was exactly right. Daniel behaved like marriage was a competition. He had escaped victoriously, like youth itself had validated him. Men like him often confused attention with rebirth. Ellie leaned against the counter, but honestly, she continued, "He looks kind of pathetic." I looked at my daughter, then really looked at her. Somewhere between AP classes, driving lessons, and college applications, she had quietly become perceptive in ways I had not noticed. "I don't want you to hate your father," I said carefully. She shrugged. "I don't hate him," she replied. "I just think he expected you to fall apart." The truth landed harder than she probably intended. That afternoon, for the first time since Daniel left, I opened the home office door. Daniel rarely handled paperwork himself anymore. Success had made him lazy about details, receipts, contracts, tax documents. They all ended up stacked carelessly across filing cabinets and desk drawers while he focused on networking lunches and golf outings with developers. At first, I was only looking for bank information. Then I started noticing patterns. Luxury, hotel charges billed through the business account, flights for Brianna disguised as marketing travel, jewelry purchases labeled as client entertainment, thousands upon thousands of dollars quietly filtered through company expenses. I sat at the desk for nearly 3 hours sorting documents into piles, while something inside me slowly changed shape. Not rage,
clarity.
The next morning, I called a lawyer named Denise Harper. Her office sat inside a sleek, modern building in downtown Phoenix, all glass walls and cold air conditioning. Denise herself looked to be in her late 50s, silver blonde, bob haircut, sharp navy suit, calm eyes that had clearly witnessed every possible variation of marital disaster. She listened without interrupting while I explained everything. When I finished, she folded her hands neatly atop the desk. "First," she said, "your husband is not nearly as smart as he thinks he is." I blinked. Denise slid several highlighted financial statements toward me. "These expenses tied to the affair are significant," she continued. "And based on the records you brought, much of the original business capital came from your inheritance. It was years ago. Doesn't matter. Documentation matters." For the first time in weeks, I felt something unfamiliar. Not hope exactly, but movement. Denise leaned back slightly.
"Clare,
"Men like your husband often make the same mistake." She said. "They think the spouse maintaining stability has no power because that labor isn't flashy." I looked down at the paperwork silently. "He thinks he built this life himself," I admitted.
No, Denise corrected gently.
"He thinks you'll never stop protecting him." The sentence lodged itself deep inside me. Because she was right. Every year of our marriage, I had cleaned up emotional messes Daniel created. I softened his temper around Ellie.
I
handled holidays, birthdays, school schedules, repairs, taxes, family obligations. I absorbed stress so completely that eventually he stopped seeing it at all. Invisible labor only remains invisible until it disappears. Over the next 2 weeks, my life developed structure. Again, I reopened contacts from my old interior design career and discovered something surprising. People still
Respected me.
Former clients remembered my work warmly. An old colleague invited me to consult on a boutique hotel renovation in Sedona. Another asked whether I would consider independent residential projects again.
Each.
Conversation felt like recovering fragments of a woman I had abandoned years earlier. Meanwhile, Daniel barely called home. He texted occasionally, usually late at night, Arizona time. Having fun here. You should really relax more. Or, hope Ellie's behaving. Never once did he ask how I was actually feeling. One evening, Ellie and I ordered Thai food and ate on the patio while desert heat rolled across the neighborhood in slow waves. The sky burned orange beyond the mountains. You seem different, she said suddenly.
I
Glanced at her. Different good or different scary? A little of both, she admitted. I smiled faintly. Maybe I'm just tired of being underestimated. Ellie looked down at her plate for a moment before speaking again. You know, she said carefully. Dad always acted like you needed him more than he needed.
You.
The sentence settled heavily between us because the terrible thing was for years I had believed it too. That night, after Ellie went upstairs, I walked into the living room carrying a cardboard box. One by one, I removed photographs from shelves and walls. Not angrily, not dramatically, methodically. Wedding pictures, family portraits, vacation memories carefully curated to resemble permanence.
By midnight, the
room looked strangely larger. There was one empty space above the fireplace where our wedding portrait had hung for 17 years. The pale rectangle on the wall remained visible beneath the recessed lighting like a ghost refusing to disappear. I stood there staring at it for a long time. Then, unexpectedly, I smiled. Not because I had healed, not because I stopped hurting, but because for the first time since Daniel publicly humiliated me, I realized something important. He thought he had left me powerless. What he had actually done was leave me alone long enough to remember who I was before I built my entire life around him. By the 3rd week of Daniel's European vacation, people in our neighborhood had stopped pretending not to know. Affairs thrive on secrecy. Humiliation survives on performance. Daniel had made ours public, which meant everyone suddenly became careful around me in the slow, awkward way Americans often do when they encounter visible personal tragedy. Women at the grocery store touched my arm a little too gently. Neighbors spoke with exaggerated kindness. Even the teenage cashier at our local coffee shop looked at me with that uncomfortable expression people reserve for widows and abandoned wives. Pity exhausted me more than anger ever could. So I stopped hiding. Not dramatically, not vindicatively. I simply began living
differently.
Every morning I drove 40 minutes north to Sedona for the boutique hotel renovation project I had agreed to
Consult on.
The property sat against red sandstone cliffs glowing under desert sunlight, and for the first time in years, my days belonged to something beyond maintaining Daniel's comfort. I spent hours reviewing textures, lighting, plans, furniture layouts. I argued with contractors about tile finishes and laughed over takeout lunches with architects young enough to call me ma'am without realizing how irritating it sounded. And slowly, almost invisibly, I started returning to myself. One afternoon, while reviewing fabric samples in the temporary design office, I met Evan Brooks. He was the lead architect on the project, 48 years old, divorced, composed in the quiet way emotionally mature men often are.
No.
Flashy watch, no forced charm, no desperate need to dominate conversations. He listened carefully when people spoke. He remembered details. He apologized when he interrupted someone. The first time he brought me coffee, he asked how I took it instead of assuming. I nearly forgot how attractive basic respect could feel. Still, nothing inappropriate happened between us. Not even close. What surprised me more was how quickly my coworkers assumed there must be something romantic developing simply Because a man and woman over 40 enjoyed each other's company. Americans loved reinvention stories. They especially loved stories where betrayed women immediately emerged glowing beside wiser, kinder men. But my real transformation had very little to do with romance. It had to do with anger finally hardening into self-respect. Meanwhile, Daniel continued broadcasting his midlife crisis online like a teenager, discovering freedom for the first time. Capri, Santorini, Positano, endless photographs of rooftop dinners, yacht excursions, designer shopping bags. Brianna posted videos clinking champagne glasses while Daniel grinned beside her with a stiff overconfidence of a man trying desperately to convince himself he was happy. Sometimes late at night, I studied those photos carefully. Not because I missed him, because I recognized something tragic in them. Daniel looked exhausted, not physically, spiritually. The kind of exhaustion that comes from performing happiness instead of experiencing it. People often imagine revenge as destruction. Screaming arguments, shattered glass. Dramatic. Betrayals returned in equal measure. But real revenge, I was beginning to understand, was far quieter. Real revenge was indifference. It was reclaiming the parts of yourself someone else convinced you were too old, too boring, too dependent to survive without them. 3 days before Daniel's scheduled return home, Denise called me into her office. She slid a folder across the
Desk.
I finalized the temporary property agreement, she said. I opened the folder slowly, because Daniel had funneled marital funds into the affair so recklessly, and because the original down payment for our home traced directly back to my inheritance. Denise had secured a powerful position before formal divorce proceedings even began. Daniel's financial misconduct gave us leverage, significant leverage. The house would remain under my sole residential control during the separation. Legally, carefully, methodically, the foundation beneath Daniel's confidence had already begun collapsing. He's going to lose his mind, I murmured. Denise's expression remained calm. No, she corrected softly. He's going to lose the illusion that actions don't have consequences. There was something almost comforting about her precision. No cruelty, no theatrics, just accountability.
On my
drive home, Arizona sunlight stretched gold across the highway while classic rock played softly through the speakers. For the first time in months, maybe years, I rolled down the windows and let warm desert air flood the car. I realized then that I no longer wanted Daniel destroyed. That surprised me. A few weeks earlier, I would have fantasized about humiliating him publicly the way he humiliated me. I wanted him ashamed, broken, punished. But deeper than rage was something calmer and far more dangerous. I wanted freedom. That evening, Ellie helped me repaint the living room. We moved furniture aside, covered floors with plastic sheets, and spent hours turning the old beige walls into a softer, warm white that made the entire room brighter. Snorts music played from Ellie's phone while paint rollers moved rhythmically across drywall. At one point, she climbed down the ladder and looked around thoughtfully. It already feels different, she said. It is different, she hesitated. Are we erasing him? The question hung quietly between us. I set my paint tray down carefully before answering. No, I said we're making room for ourselves again. Ellie nodded slowly as though she understood more than I realized. 2 days later, the house barely resembled the one Daniel left behind. Not because I redecorated extravagantly, because I removed heaviness. Dark leather. Furniture disappeared, replaced by lighter fabrics and cleaner lines. Old family photos vanished from crowded shelves. The air itself seemed less tense somehow, as though years of silent resentment had finally left with him. Then came the wall. The empty space above the fireplace remained untouched until the very end. I stood before it for nearly 10 minutes, holding the framed photograph the delivery company had dropped off earlier that afternoon. It was not a wedding portrait. That part mattered. The photo had been taken accidentally during a project dinner in Sedona. Evan stood beside me outdoors beneath string lights while sunset burned red across the cliffs behind us. We were both laughing at something outside the frame, relaxed and alive in a way I had not seen myself in years.
When the
Photographer from the hotel's marketing team emailed it to us, I stared at my own face for a long time. I looked
happy,
not performative happy, not survival happy.
real.
Underneath the photograph, I placed another frame. Inside it sat a clean copy of the temporary property agreement, showing sole residential authority under my name during separation proceedings. Simple, elegant, final. No dramatic messages, no cruelty, no threats, just
Truth.
that night, Daniel texted me for the first time in nearly a week. Landing tomorrow afternoon.
Hope you've calmed down by now.
I stared at the message. Then I locked my phone and placed it face down on the kitchen counter. Upstairs, Ellie was packing for a weekend college prep retreat. The dishwasher hummed softly. Outside, warm. Desert wind brushed against the patio furniture. And suddenly, standing there inside the quiet house I had spent 17 years protecting, I understood something that changed everything. Daniel believed power came from making people afraid to lose you, but real power came from no longer being afraid yourself. The next day, at exactly 4:42 p.m., my husband walked through the front door, believing he still owned the life he abandoned. And then he looked up at the wall. The first sound I heard was the garage door grinding open beneath the house.
Then
Footsteps. Confident footsteps. The kind a man makes when he believes he is returning to something permanent. I was standing at the kitchen island slicing lemons for iced tea when Daniel entered through the mudroom carrying 2 expensive suitcases and the smell of airport cologne and Mediterranean sunscreen. He looked darker, leaner, overly rested like every divorced actor photographed on a yacht during a public breakdown. For one strange second, seeing him again after nearly a month made my chest tighten with old instinct. 17 years of marriage do not disappear cleanly. Your body still remembers the rhythm of someone's presence even after. Your mind no longer trusts them. Daniel tossed his car keys onto the counter. "Well," he said casually, "you still alive in here?" I said nothing. He removed his sunglasses slowly and looked around the kitchen. The confusion appeared first. Subtle, but unmistakable. The new paint color, the rearranged furniture visible from the hallway, the absence of clutter, the strange emotional lightness inside the room. It was the expression of a man realizing he had returned to familiar coordinates, only to discover the terrain itself had changed. "What happened in here?" he asked.
I
"Redecorated." Huh. He walked farther into the house, rolling his suitcase behind him. I remained silent, wiping my hands slowly with a dish towel while I watched him absorb each difference, one piece at a time. The old console table
was gone.
The framed family photos had disappeared. Even the air smelled different, lighter somehow touched with citrus candles instead of Daniel's preferred cedarwood scent. He frowned. "Where's Ellie?" "College prep retreat. She'll be back Sunday." Daniel nodded distractedly, still scanning the room. Then he stepped into the living room and froze. Not metaphorically, actually froze, one hand still gripping the suitcase handle while his entire body stopped moving mid-step. I watched the exact moment his confidence collapsed. His eyes locked onto the wall above the fireplace where our wedding portrait used to hang. Now illuminated beneath soft recessed lighting was the large, framed photograph of me and Evan standing beneath golden desert light, smiling with effortless ease beside each other. And directly beneath it sat the second frame, the legal document, my name, only my name. For several long seconds, Daniel said absolutely nothing. I do not think he was prepared for silence. Men like him expect emotional reactions because emotional reactions reassure them they still matter. Raged hairs begging all of it confirmed significance. But I had nothing left to
Prove.
Finally, he spoke. "What the hell is this?" His voice sounded oddly thin.
I
Folded the dish towel carefully and placed it on the counter. "A photograph," I replied calmly. "I can see that." His eyes moved between the picture and the framed document beneath it. "Who the hell is that guy?" "His name is Evan." Daniel let out a sharp laugh that contained no humor whatsoever. You're unbelievable. The accusation almost amused me.
I'm unbelievable.
You spent 1 month pretending to be devastated, and now you're hanging pictures of another man in my house. There it was. My house. Even now, even after everything, I walked slowly into the living room until I stood several feet away from him. This isn't your house anymore, Daniel. His jaw tightened immediately. The hell it isn't. I gestured lightly toward the legal document. You should read the paperwork. He dropped the suitcase handle and snatched the frame off the wall, aggressively scanning the page, while color slowly drained from his face. What is this? It's temporary residential control during separation. Proceedings. You filed for divorce. Yes, you sneaky little...
No, interrupta.
Quietly. Careful, little. The room fell silent again. Daniel looked up at me, truly looking for the first time since he walked through the door. I could almost see the calculations happening behind his eyes, the sudden realization that events had continued unfolding, while he played wealthy tourist across Europe. When exactly were you planning to tell me about this? He demanded. You seemed busy. He threw the frame onto the couch. This is because of him, he snapped, pointing toward the photograph. You're screwing some architect now. The old version of me would have defended myself emotionally, explained, justified, pleaded to be understood. But something fundamental inside me had shifted during those weeks alone.
No,
answered simply. I'm not. Daniel blinked.
What?
Evan is a colleague and a friend. Then why the hell is his picture hanging in my living room? I tilted my head slightly. Interesting choice of words. His expression hardened.
You
know exactly what I mean.
No, irrepliably.
I don't think I do. The silence stretched painfully. Then, for the first time since I met him 20 years earlier, I watched Daniel struggle to maintain control of a conversation. You're trying to humiliate me, he said finally. I almost laughed. Humiliation. Such a fascinating word coming from him. You announced your affair at our barbecue. I reminded him softly. In front of our friends, in front of our
daughter.
That's different.
Why?
Because I was honest. The hypocrisy landed so heavily between us that even Daniel seemed to hear it after the words left his mouth. I crossed my arms slowly. You told me this was an open marriage, I said. You told me to adapt. His eyes narrowed. That's not the same thing. And you know it. There it was at last, the truth beneath all his modern language about freedom and evolution and honesty. Daniel never wanted equality. He wanted permission. Permission to betray without consequences. Permission to feel desired while still keeping the stable life I spent years building beside him. Men like Daniel called it freedom because selfishness sounded ugly when spoken aloud. He looked around the living room again, but this time his expression carried something deeper than anger.
Fear.
Because for the first time, he understood the situation clearly. I was not competing for him anymore. I was leaving him behind. You really did all this while I was gone, he murmured quietly. Yes, and you didn't even call me. The statement revealed more than he intended. He genuinely believed I would spend that month chasing him emotionally while he traveled Europe with another woman. I held his gaze. You already left, Daniel. His face tightened slightly. No, he said, I went on a trip.
No, irrapata calmly.
You left your family long before the airport. For a brief moment, genuine emotion cracked through his anger. Not remorse. Exactly. Something more uncomfortable. Recognition. Upstairs, a floorboard creaked softly. Daniel glanced toward the staircase just as Ellie slowly descended halfway down, backpack slung over one shoulder. She had returned home early from the retreat with a friend's parents and apparently heard enough from upstairs to understand what was happening. Hey, Daniel said awkwardly. Ellie stopped midway down the staircase. Her eyes moved toward the photograph on the wall, then toward the legal papers, then finally toward her father. The disappointment on her face hit him harder than anything I said. Dad, she asked quietly, did you really think Mom would just sit here forever while you ran around Europe with your girlfriend? Daniel opened his mouth, closed it. Ellie shook her head slowly. You left first. Simple words, but devastating ones. Daniel looked suddenly older, standing there in the middle of the room, surrounded by evidence that life had continued evolving without him. The confidence he carried through the front door had vanished completely, now replaced by something hollow and disoriented. He stared once more at the wall, at the photograph, at the legal document, at the empty space where our marriage used to exist. And for the first time since this entire nightmare began, my husband finally understood the truth. He had mistaken my loyalty for dependence, and now he was standing inside the consequences of that mistake. After Ellie went upstairs, the house became unbearably quiet. Daniel remained standing near the fireplace for several seconds longer, staring at the framed property agreement as though the legal language might rearrange itself if he looked hard enough. The late afternoon sun stretched across the hardwood floors in long golden rectangles, illuminating dust particles drifting lazily through the air between us. For years, silence inside our marriage had frightened me. Now it protected me. Daniel finally loosened his grip on the suitcase handle and walked slowly into the kitchen. He opened the refrigerator automatically, then stopped halfway through the motion, confused by unfamiliar containers and reorganized shelves. Tiny details unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. The house no longer anticipated him. That realization seemed to wound him in ways legal documents could not. He shut the refrigerator door harder than necessary. So that's it, he asked without turning around. You just decided everything while I was gone. I leaned lightly against the counter. No, I said calmly. You decided everything the moment you demanded I accept your affair as a condition of staying married. Daniel exhaled sharply through his nose. You're twisting this. I'm clarifying it. He turned toward me, then frustration darkening his face. You know what your problem is, Claire? He snapped. You always make everything sound colder than it really is. I almost smiled. That accusation would have destroyed me years earlier because there was truth buried inside it. I had become colder. Not cruel, just no longer willing to soften reality so other people could remain comfortable inside it. You embarrassed me publicly, I replied evenly. You disappeared for a month with another woman. You used company money to finance it. And somehow you're shocked I stopped protecting you. Daniel's jaw tightened instantly at the word protecting, because deep down he knew exactly what I meant. For nearly 2 decades, I had functioned like emotional insulation around his life. I absorbed consequences before they reached him. I repaired relationships after his temper damaged them. I remembered birthdays, sent thank you cards, scheduled dentist appointments, monitored Ellie's grades, balanced accounts, hosted holidays, maintained social ties, organized contractors, managed repairs, planned vacations, handled emergencies. Daniel performed success publicly, while I quietly maintained the machinery underneath it. The tragedy was not that he failed to appreciate it. The tragedy was that eventually he stopped seeing it at all. He walked toward the patio doors and stared outside at the pool, shimmering beneath the evening light. I didn't think you'd go this far, he admitted quietly. There it was again, not remorse. Surprise, as though my self-respect had somehow violated an agreement neither of us consciously signed. You didn't think I'd leave, I corrected. Daniel rubbed a hand across his face slowly, exhaustion beginning to show beneath the tan and expensive vacation clothes. It wasn't
Supposed to happen like this.
I studied him carefully. Middle-aged men often believed unhappiness arrived from outside their lives. Aging, routine, responsibility, marriage. They chased excitement because excitement felt easier than confronting themselves. Affairs became mirrors reflecting youth back at them temporarily, but mirrors always fail eventually. What exactly did you think would happen? I asked. He looked at me helplessly for a moment. I thought he stopped. Then he laughed bitterly at himself. That's the problem, he muttered. I didn't think number. He hadn't. Daniel had mistaken appetite for truth, attention for meaning, escape for freedom. And because the world often rewards confident men long before it judges them, he assumed consequences would somehow exempt him. 2. I walked toward the living room slowly and sat down on the couch beneath the framed photograph. Snorts. Daniel remained standing several feet away, uncertain. Now, emotionally disarmed in ways I had never witnessed before. I need you to understand something, I said quietly. He looked up. I don't hate you. That clearly was not the answer he expected. Then why does this feel like punishment? Because accountability always feels like punishment to people who expected immunity. But I did not say that aloud. Instead, I looked toward the wall above the fireplace. When you left, I continued. I thought revenge meant hurting you back. I imagined humiliating you the way you humiliated me. Daniel said nothing. But somewhere during that month, I said softly, I realized something worse than losing you. He frowned slightly.
What?
I realized how much of myself I lost trying to keep this marriage alive. The words settled heavily into the room. Outside, desert wind rustled softly through the palm trees surrounding the backyard. Somewhere in the neighborhood, a lawnmower hummed faintly against the evening silence. Daniel lowered himself slowly into the armchair across from me. For the first time in years, we looked like two ordinary people instead of husband and wife locked inside old roles. I never wanted to destroy our family, he admitted quietly.
No, irraplia.
You just thought it would survive anything you did to it. His eyes dropped toward the floor. That was the closest thing to honesty he had offered me in a very long
time.
Over the following weeks, our separation unfolded with less drama than most people expected. Friends kept waiting for screaming matches, public meltdowns, vicious legal warfare. Instead, reality arrived slowly and uncomfortably. Daniel moved into a luxury apartment downtown, at first still clinging to fragments of the lifestyle he associated with success. But divorce mathematics are far less glamorous than vacation fantasies. Attorney fees accumulated. Business accounts tightened under financial review. Unnecessary spending suddenly carried consequences. Brianna disappeared almost immediately once permanence replaced excitement. That part did not satisfy me nearly as much as I once imagined it would, because by then I finally understood something important. Women do not actually heal by watching other women lose. They heal by rebuilding
Themselves.
My design career expanded faster than expected after the Sedona project succeeded. Referrals multiplied. Former clients returned. Within 8 months, I opened a small independent design studio in Phoenix, specializing in warm, modern interiors for boutique commercial spaces and custom homes. Nothing enormous, nothing cinematic, just mine. Ellie left for college the following fall, stronger and wiser than either of us intended her to become so early in life. Her relationship with Daniel remained polite, but distant, shaped less by anger than disappointment. Betrayal changes children, too, especially daughters watching how men treat women they once promised to love. As for Evan, he remained exactly what he always was, a good friend who entered my life during a season when I desperately needed evidence that kindness still existed. Nothing more, nothing less. That mattered to me because I refused to become the mirror image of the thing that hurt me. Nearly a year after Daniel returned from Europe, he came by the house one afternoon to pick up old tax documents from the garage. His hair looked grayer, his confidence quieter. Life had not destroyed him, but it had finally introduced him to humility. Before leaving, he paused near the living room wall again. The photograph of Evan and me was gone now. In its place hung a different picture. Ellie and I standing barefoot on a California beach at sunset during her spring break. Both of us laughing into the wind. Daniel stared at it for several seconds.
Then he looked at me. You seem happy, he said.
And for the first time in a very long time, the answer came easily. I am. Not because he suffered. Not because I won, but because somewhere inside all that humiliation and grief, I finally stopped measuring my worth through someone else's ability to choose me. Daniel nodded slowly, as though understanding something too late to change it. Then he left quietly. I locked the door behind him and stood, alone in the peaceful silence of the house we once built together. Except now, finally, it felt like home. Sometimes, people think power means having the freedom to betray others without consequences. But real power, the kind that lasts, comes from walking away with your dignity intact after someone tried to convince you that you were nothing without them. And maybe that is the cruelest revenge of all. To heal so completely that the person who broke you no longer recognizes the version of you standing in front of them. If this story touched you, in any way, if you've ever had to rebuild yourself after betrayal, heartbreak, or humiliation, take a moment to share your thoughts below.
And
If you enjoy emotional, realistic revenge stories with meaning and depth, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the next journey.